Hey folks, so we're 1-1 since the last time we talked. Not great. The Leafs are going to drop in the standings? Nope. 7-5-2 in March, but really it doesn't seem to matter. The season is drawing to a close, but despite the standings and the fact that nothing seems to change in the standings, we've got things to argue about. We've got things to scream about. It's Leafland, and we're going to break it all down for you right here on the OZone.
You're in the offensive zone, your place for Leafs hockey.
Hey folks, welcome to the OZone. That's Coach. That's Katie. I'm the Devo. We're here to talk all things Leafs. I'm coming here from downtown Toronto, the OZone HQ. Coach, where are you at today?
Fellas, today I'm coming to you from London.
London?
London.
London?
London. You know, fish, chips, cup of tea, bad food, worse weather, Merry frickin' Poppins. London.
Nice. How's things looking over there? Are they getting ready for planning the big parade for the Leafs this spring?
It's cold and rainy, but you probably could have guessed that, guys.
Yeah. Katie, where are you at?
Well, we're at the Bay Street office up in the Ivory Tower here, and it is cold and rainy as well. London
Beautiful.
weather. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, folks, before we get started, hit subscribe. A lot of you folks who watch these videos aren't subscribers. You should hit subscribe, ring the bell. You'll never miss any content. Like and share the video. Tell all your friends. Bring them in here. We got some good content coming, especially as we get into the playoffs. Helps broaden the audience. And leave a comment. We will be finishing off the season with a big mailbag, and we need your input. Okay, folks, lots to talk about here. I hit it at the home, at the intro there, fellas. Home ice. Is it locked? Coach, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. We're up 4 with, a game in hand. I think it's important for the Leafs to lock that. I don't think Tampa cares. I think Tampa feels like they've earned the notion that they can turn it on come playoff time. I think they believe that they're a tough matchup for anybody. They're deep. So, having last change really doesn't matter all that much. But for the Leafs, I think it's a significant milestone. Guys, I think it needs to happen before we get to that last 3-game stretch. We got Florida, who may be playing for something. We got Tampa, second last game, and then the Rangers might be playing for home ice too. So I do think it's important for us to get it, especially because of this whole 11-7 versus 12-6 thing. You look at Luke Schenn, he played, 7-8 minutes last game as a 7th D. I don't know how you do that, and you can't hide that guy when you just play 6, right? So do I think it's wrapped up? More or less. Do I think it's important? I do for the Leafs. I don't think Tampa cares, though.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm not so sure the Leafs care, too. We're lacing up Radim Zohorna tonight, so we'll see what that's all about. But, Katie, what do you think? Is home ice locked?
I think it's pretty much a lock. Do I think it's important? I guess. I'm more worried about them getting their game going towards the end. I think we've been stalled out a little bit and kind of missing some of the finer points, which we'll talk about as we get going more. So for me, it's more of getting your A game before you hit game 1, which I don't think they're at the moment. So I think if they can get there, they certainly will make sure they get second place at home ice.
Yeah, I think home ice is locked, quite frankly. I do think that these games matter. Keefe hasn't found the mix yet. He's shaking everything up. I think he's got to settle. I believe the last 2 or 3 games really won't matter, and we'll start to see guys like Radim playing perhaps a little bit more, and maybe some other call-ups. We might see Nyes in for a couple of games as well. So I think home ice is locked. But the games do matter because they got to settle these lines. Coach, you brought up the back end. which certainly with all the guys, the 8 guys, you had Shen with the baby and Gustav Sivsov with a family issue right now as well. Ideally, we miss the injury bug from here to the rest of the season, but at most, we're going to see 7 guys in a lineup, some nights 6. I think they'll start the postseason with a lineup of 12 and 6, personally, but if things don't go well, I think they'll probably move to an 11-7 situation. We've litigated that before. But when you look at the forwards, those have really been moving around, and there's some things we probably need to hit up. We got O'Reilly coming back soon. He's been skating with the team. KD, what do you think about that? What do you think that does to the team? When do you think he's going to actually be back in the lineup, and where do you think he plays?
Well, I think Coach might know the actual timing when he comes back better than me. I don't think he's reached his, 21-day LTIR. I don't think he's actually reached the level. He's skating a lot. I mean, they show lots of clips, and he looks fine up there. It's been his finger. I mean, if you're going to hurt anything, that's the one to hurt. So his legs are going to be fine. He actually might have jump just because he hasn't had to play any hockey. So his body should be pretty fresh. Hopefully that hand is going to be fine and ready to go in the playoffs. So any games would be great. Obviously, we'd want to try and get him working more with ideally in the top 6 and getting the guys in sync. And it's the little thing. It's the matchups when you're penalty killing and the line that you have on the power play. A little bit of that could go a long way into the playoffs. So, like ideally he gets his 5-6 games in and then we go. Ideally we've litigated many times that I like him in the top 6 and love to see him at that second line center, and that's how we look at it.
Yeah, I see him there too. Coach, what do you think? Is it April 4th? Is the earliest he can come back?
Yeah, it's the 4th or 5th, somewhere around there.
So it's Tuesday game, I think. Is that right? Next Tuesday?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he's either eligible for Columbus, the 4th, or it might be the 5th, in which case he'd come back against Boston. But yeah, it's this week. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's hugely important here, guys. Mm-hmm. He is a legit, top 6 player, and arguably the best playoff performer of the last few years. I mean, some guys on Tampa might argue with that, but that run he had to the Cup final was unbelievable, right? Yep. And he's going to float all boats wherever he plays. We all agree, I think, that he should be in the top 6, but wherever it slots guys in. So instead of looking at the trade deadline as a guy like Lafferty replacing Engvall, who's as fast as Engvall but has some talent, or a guy like Achari replacing Engvall, who's as rugged as Engvall but actually is more consistently rugged, like Engvall. We don't miss him, but instead of that, instead of the kind of window dressing, here's the main course, and I don't think they're rushing him, but you're right. The finger allowed him to skate. He was skating pretty much the whole time, and he started practicing last week. So he's getting in some practices. He's not wearing a no-contact jersey either.
I saw
so
that.
I think he'll be ready. It fits into what you were saying earlier, Devo. He's been fiddling now since the trade deadline. There's 11 and 7. There's 12 and 6. There's this guy in. There's this guy out. He has to settle with some games left into what does your lineup look like.
Right.
And ideally you do that before you get Florida, Tampa, the Rangers to end the season. So it'd be good to get him in, get a couple games of what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
Be confident with it, and then kind of shelve it and ease into the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement that he's come back. We've noticed, the mad scientist Keefe shuffling things quite a lot, and that's going to continue. We'll actually see some fresh faces before the end of the year in the lineup. I think Matthew Nees for sure is one of them that we can expect. But Dubas likes to get some of these guys paid, and so he'll work them into a couple of NHL games. I think that's a good showing. It's a man of the people kind of move, and I think the organization and the players like that sort of thing. But with O'Reilly coming back and some of the other moves that we've seen happening, this is a big question. I think a lot of our subscribers would probably want to know the answer to this. Where do you see Bunting fitting in with the lineup? Not just this weekend's games, but like let's talk about it legit for the playoffs. Has he found himself out of the top six for good? I'll start with you, Coach.
Maybe. We talked last time, and I think he has to be in the top six because he's not. His game doesn't lend itself to bottom six. Especially his head doesn't lend itself to that. He's going to do too much. However, and the top six, I think, is going to get more crowded here in a second when O'Reilly comes back, as we just talked about. However, I think Yarncroc has played his way into the top six. He has a legitimate claim to that, and you couldn't have made that based on his career. The guy's only had his top 15 goals in a season in a season for his career, right? And when he got traded, when Calgary picked him up at the trade deadline, he did nothing. I think he scored one goal for them down the stretch, right?
Yeah.
So now, is he a solid third line guy or bottom six? Yeah, 100%. He's responsible and he can really move. But man, he's been good in the top six. But I think you kind of lose Bunting, and then he plays less minutes because you're not trusting him, and then that compounds things up here where, hey, I got to go do something. And remember when we had that against Tampa, Game 1, guys, Game 1 last year, we felt like we were going to try and they were going to bully us, and we went with Simmons and Kyle Clifford. And Clifford gets 5 in a game because he's in here. He's like, I got to do something in the lineup. I got to go rough somebody up. And he took that dumb hit. I fear that's where Bunting's head's going to be at. So,
I think you're right.
Tough one. I don't know, Devo. I don't know.
I think you're right. The only trick I have to that, before I pass it on to you, KD, the only issue I have with that is he better than Yarncroc in the top six right now? Yarncroc's played pretty well. In fact, both of his stints in the top six, he's looked good. He came in January for a bit. I think, actually, I remember talking about him in January in a pod. We're saying, like, I think he's legit there. He got injured, and that's what sort of dropped him back down the lineup. Katie, what do you think? Has Bunting played his way out, and or Yarncroc made this almost an impossible decision?
I think it's actually more of the latter. I mean, I think Yarncroc's played his way in. Bunting has played enough in the on Matthews' line and scored and produced enough for the team to give him an opportunity to get his legs back and to get back in the game. Like, he's really put up some pretty good numbers considering how little he gets paid. I think he was always perceived as a line mate for Matthews. I mean, he has been all year. So it really took, I think, a Herculean effort by Yarncroc to push him out. Sorry, I'll keep it down to 2-syllable words now. But I do agree, though, the problem you get with Bunting, if he doesn't stick on that first line, is he's not really truly a responsible checker. So is he going to fit on that third line? He probably doesn't. If he's not on the first line, he's probably on the fourth line. So you go from playing 19 minutes a game to playing 8. It's a big difference. So we'll see how it shakes out. But if we really want that great third line, that dogging line that chase the pucks and do all that stuff, I still think Yarncroc is your top 3 guys for that.
He's better suited there.
So it really depends on what they want. If they want to really stack the top 6 and really get it going, Yarncroc's been the guy who's been going the best. So he's on that top 6. But if you figure the top 6 is going to be great anyways, and you say, listen, we need that third line to do a lot of the heavy lifting, I think you got to stick Yarncroc there and move Bunting back up.
Yeah, I wonder if anything factors into this. I mean, they've seemingly put the band back together on the first line, right? It looks like Mitch is up there with Matthews again, and we've debated whether it's better to spread it around and have Mitch play back. But let's just assume for a second that Mitch is going to play up there with Matthews. If that's the case, I think he can make a pretty strong case that Bunting should be there too. Keep the band together, and that's fine. But I think if they're going to continue to jumble up those first 2 lines, I think all bets are off. Okay, let's slide back now to the back end. Lots to talk about. I think we all agree we like what a guy like Schenn brings to the Leafs organization. He's big, he's physical, and he's mean. They don't have a ton of that. You want to have a little bit of that in the playoffs. He's got the right side curve to his stick too, which is appealing unto itself. But the issue with him is you cannot rely on him to play 15 minutes a game, let alone 20 minutes a game. I don't believe you can. So if you're going to put him in the lineup, he can really only be there if you've got a pair that you're going to trust to basically play 28 minutes a game or more, or you're going to go with 7D. I don't see how he fits. That's point A with the right-hand curves. Here's point B with the right-hand curves. Has 37 played his way out of the top 7 right now? Let's go there. Katie, what do you think?
He's certainly not playing with confidence. You can see it. I mean, we were at the game last night or 2 nights ago, and you can see he was struggling. He actually looks like he's struggling with his legs too. He went out several times in between whistles, and he skated around a bit. I don't know if he's 100% right too, which might cause his game to wane a bit. But he certainly is not being trusted. He doesn't get a sniff on the penalty kill anymore, and he's he just doesn't look like he's sort of the same guy that we saw a month or 2 ago, which is bad timing. Ultimately, he makes a decision easier, but I sure would feel better if Keefe had a lot of problems, like, oh my God, who do I get in this lineup because everyone's playing well? But he doesn't look right to me, and again, it really wouldn't surprise me if it came out a week or 2 from now that he was having problems with either his knee or his hip, because he's not skating quite right, and that usually when that happens, he's toughing it out. He's being hanging in there and being the tough guy, but he just doesn't seem to be moving with the same confidence.
Yeah, he's taken some massive hits in the last couple of weeks. In the game we were at on Tuesday, KD, he took a huge hit in the first period on the end boards, and a lot of that is because he's holding the puck too long, which is usually a confidence thing. Coach, what are you seeing when you look at 37, and how do you project him moving forward?
Hey, just in case anybody was confused, London, Ontario versus London, England. I got the darts on here in the background. Some guy just he hit 320s, and the guy's like 180. So anyway, he sure looks like he's struggling. So I'm not so concerned with the big hits. I mean, my goodness, Hall leads the league in getting hit.
Right.
So, and he actually has been okay during this stretch. I'm more concerned about the giveaways with him. And so if that leads to holding on to the puck more and trying to make good play, yeah, you can see that, can't you? Look, we've talked about forever now. Brody, it looks like, is going to play the right side, which means that the 3 guys with right curves probably only 2 play. Certainly only 2 play if you go with 6D. And we've said this is a great opportunity here. They're 22 games after the trade deadline was done for guys to go earn a spot. Here's what I'm concerned about. Justin Hall seems to have earned a spot by being mediocre. Guys, the other 2 guys are not it. They've each had a chance to go play with Riley. If you can play with Riley, everything else sorts itself out. Right. That's what we want. And Shen can't do it. He can't play those minutes. He can't even play some of those minutes. And Liljegren hasn't succeeded there either. By the way, neither is Hall. So Brody's going to end up there. Or you're going to have a suboptimal Riley pair. Right. So unfortunately, I think Liljegren is playing his way out, but not because somebody else took it. It's because he's regressed.
Yeah.
But you're right, though. I don't have a lot of trust in Shen either to play any kind of meaningful minutes. He doesn't even kill much on the penalty. You guys were down there or on the PK. No. You guys were down there the other night. He's like the 4th or 5th option. You'd think a guy like that could earn some minutes.
One thing that you could really see, I was sort of halfway up in the corner in the Leafs end, and on his side, on the right side there in the corner looking down, he gets shaken off the blue line every rush.
Yeah.
He's backing his way in. Like, there's no standing up at the blue line. There's no taking the players early. It's hoping there's a dump in and turning around and trying to get it, and that's going to be might not be as much of a problem against Tampa Bay. It will be disaster against Boston. So or any of those teams in the Metropolitan if they even get that far. So I think that's a problem, and you can see on the penalty kill too. And it's at the point where you could see Keefe doesn't like putting McCabe in on his off wing on the penalty kill. Many times Hall played almost the entire penalty. He would be out there in the first shift, and he went out there at the end. That's a problem. It's
insanity. Because I would argue the three guys that shoot left are as good or better penalty killers than Hall. But because he's right and he plays a strong side, he plays a ton. But because Gio can kill too. We haven't even talked about him. I don't know, guys.
It is hard to kill on your wrong side as a defender. Like you're constantly. You saw it. We saw it with McCabe last night. We saw it on a goal against who was it, Columbus, or whatever. You get turned around and you get an opportunity to clear the puck and you can't, and then you get spun into your corner. It's tough, and in the playoffs, every goal matters. So this is going to be a bit of a problem.
Right, you get one chance, you get a fraction of a second, right? Because the PK, there's two on the puck all the time. You get it, it's got to get out.
In the Florida game, not the Florida, 2 games ago, we saw that with Brody coming around the net on his offside on a clear, and he couldn't get it out. So you got to put the right sides on the right sides and the lefts on the left sides on the penalty kill. Here's the other thing: the Leafs seem content to try to bleed that game out with saving a lead on Tuesday night, and they ran out of Hall because eventually they had to put someone else in, and it cost them. Hall needs a little bit of love, because as much as I agree he's not the greatest guy in the world, at $2 million, the amount of time he plays in the penalty kill, I still think we get value there. But 37 hasn't beat him out. Shen hasn't beat him out. No one's beat him out. He's the best they got. So
it's a problem.
It's time that he gets at least a little bit of recognition.
He gets. You should see though in the how many people at Scotia Rig hate him. He is such a polarizing guy. People really dislike him, and for no reason. I don't know. Like, he's outplayed his contract. I mean, is he the best player out there? No, but if we have every guy playing above his contract, you're going to be okay. And he does not get much love. But it is what it is. And funny, McCabe makes a horrific, egregious mistake. It ends up in the back of the net. No one says anything. Hall makes one little mistake, and you get half the crowd. Get him out of here! We got to get him out. So.
And not only that, you mentioned before that he's not taking his man on the dump ins. He's not standing up at the blue line. This last month, Hall has been really good at that. He's created plays on the offensive zone, holding his board, holding his line. He's been taking his guy, and he's actually been a little bit more aggressive in the hitting department, which is kind of nice to see. I don't know if that's contagious. I
just wish, and I suppose he is who he is now. But they got all these skills coaches, right? They got tons of skills guy. This Belfry guy, whoever, Haley Wickenheiser. He is the 8th strongest skill guy on the back end of 9. I would put only Shen behind him. Connor Timmins has more skill. If he just had a little bit of skill, I think people would calm down a little. Right. If you didn't treat it like it was a live grenade, you'd be okay. He does all the other stuff really well, though. He defends well. He does. So, and we're going to need that. So I think he's in. I don't think there's a question. He's in.
He's in. And you look at his prime competition for minutes right now, 37 with the puck over the last 4 games. He's not trusted.
He has to be better, right? He has to be better there because he's not as big, right? Yeah. He doesn't kill penalties as well. He has to be a puck-moving guy to separate himself. And when he isn't,
it's trouble.
Trouble.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about Holland's special teams. So let's get into that. The penalty kill and the power play. KD, what's going on with the special teams of late, and what's got to happen to sort of get things kind of ratcheting back up for the postseason?
Well, first of all, the thing that's been driving me nuts in the last kind of 5-6 games is the bad penalties. They're taking a lot of lazy penalties, and for a team that's not physical and you're not running anyone through the boards, you're not taking those over physical penalties. Virtually every penalty the last game, with the exception of Gio saved the goal right at the end. Every penalty was a bad one. It was just not moving your feet, and it was guys like Marner and Kerfoot and those guys. They have to get that. Your best penalty killing is not to be on short. If you keep out of the penalty box, your penalty killing is fantastic. So I don't mind once you have O'Reilly back, you have two good draw men. You have lots of options at forward. I do get worried on that right side on the penalty kill. Other than that, I feel good. Like on the left side, you have McCabe, Brody, and Gio. Those are all above average defenders on that side, so it's fine. We have to pray Hall doesn't get hurt, because if he gets hurt, I don't know what happens. You're in a lot of trouble. But I think the penalty killing will be fine. I think it looks, for the most part, it's pretty good. The power play would be one thing that the power play needs to be good as well. The penalty killing probably needs to be better, but the power play needs to get going in the playoffs. And I think right now, recently, I think they've been a little too selective, meaning they're not taking shots. You could see it when Florida really played a very determined tight box. They did not want to shoot. They were looking for the perfect play. And then at the end, they fired a shot just to shoot, and it was easily turned over. So I think, I'm a big fan of crossing the wingers, or at least having someone available to take that one-timer. I think they need to show different looks. I don't need to cross the wingers all the time. What I want is lots of shots on net and lots of good opportunities to shoot. And that's the key in the playoffs. And you want some good chances to shoot. So I'd like to see them show different looks. I'd like to see them have Matthews on his off wing a bit, certainly have Nylander on his off wing, and let those guys rip the puck once or twice early in the power play, loosen that box up so you can get more chances. And I think that's going to be really key going against, very well coached, disciplined teams. Every team from the East is good at going to be in the playoffs, and even the teams in the Metro are going to play good D on the PK. So they need to be really good going in.
Yeah, it's true. The Leafs have had a hard time penetrating the box when teams have stayed disciplined in the postseason that they faced in the last few years, and it's resulted in relatively low production. Coach, what do you think about the special teams?
Katie, did you say Kerfoot took a bad penalty? I got a flashback, fellas, to Game 7 last year against Tampa. Well, anyway, not too worried about the PK. I actually think if anybody can, Brody can play his offside, and we're okay back there. And I think we've got a better rotation of wingers, especially when O'Reilly gets back, where we'll be fine. Now, your best penalty killer is always your goalie. I'm scared to death about our goaltending situation, fellas. Joe Wall beats Nashville. Should Joe Wall get some consideration here? We don't have enough time in this podcast. We'll get to
I was saying in January, if you're going to make this move, start doing it now. Yeah. But I think it's too late for that.
He's been solid. Also, he's had 7 starts, NHL starts, something like that. I don't know,
Does he have 2 shutouts, though?
Yeah. So, now, for the penalty kill, the problem is always Marner, right? And the challenge being, so you don't necessarily need a guy on each side on their off wing. I think you certainly want one. But if you look at Edmonton, got a pretty good power play. They have 2 lefts on the wings, right? So by default, one guy is on a strong side. Now that guy happens to be Connor McDavid, and he goes around and he does everything. But Draisaitl is he's the Stamkos, he's the Ovechkin. He gets it, he shoots it, he can also pass it. So I think it comes down to this for the Leafs: who best to put on the right flank? Who do you want to get the most out of? Is it Mitch Marner? Because that seems to be the way it goes, and then everybody plays on the strong side because of it, right? Or is it Matthews? And if it's Matthews, you put him there, then Marner's forced to play the other flank. Neither of those guys should play in front of the net. Neither of those guys should play in the bumper, right? They have to be the flanks. So what do you do? I don't know. It feels like a lot that they're like Nylander would be terrific on the other side, and he's a right shot. Now you got shots on both, but who gets them the puck? And I think that's why they tried the 5D for a little bit. Like, we can't have Mitch in the middle, can't have him in front, and we want shooters on either side. Let's put them at the point. I can't see them taking that kind of risk in the playoffs, but it's not great as constructed. Maybe it won't happen this year, but maybe you split those two guys up.
Right.
Maybe one guy's on the second unit. I don't know, but it's not constructed well, Kev, and unfortunately, and we get stagnant as a result too. And Matthews, like, he'll come up, and then he'll get the puck from the D and he'll come back down, but he's still on a strong side.
Yeah.
And so you don't get that quick shot, right? When he's coming down, that the D has a chance to move over. They take the cross ice pass away, and they have the shot blocked. So the only thing that's really working consistently this year is down to the guy below the goal line and then straight up to the bumper for a shot. Tavares has a career high in playoff in power play goals this year. So
I think that north-south opportunity between O'Reilly and Tavares, I think, really opens itself up. Those guys, doing more of a north-south thing. We're talking about crossing the wingers, more of an east-west thing. We'll see how that plays out. We haven't had a lot of time to look at O'Reilly there. Look, the Leaf power play is still pretty good, folks. I think it's third overall in the league, so it's not too much to worry about. But
it is though, and here's why. The series last year was so razor thin, right? Mm-hmm. Leafs outscored Tampa by a goal. Hits were the same, shots were the same, special teams were not.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the Leafs were outplayed on special teams against Tampa. They were outplayed against Montreal. They were outplayed against Columbus. They were outplayed against Boston. So, it has to show up. It has to.
Yeah, it's got to be better. There's no question. All right, folks. Well, there you have it. Everything you need to know about the Leafs. The angst meter is starting to creep up. I mean, it's strange, right? We've known Tampa since Christmas time, but it's still starting to creep up. It's getting higher and higher. But I tell you what, we've got you covered right here for all your Leafs news on the OZone.
Got you a gift, fellas.
Wimbledon.